What's up, everybody? Welcome back to High Off Foot. This is your host, Danny, also known as Wanny, and welcome to a podcast that is strictly about the hottest takes of the beautiful game of football. And we all know what time it is. It's World Cup season, baby. Let's get it. Today, we witnessed Day 7 of the World Cup, and we had some very important matches. We had Poland versus Saudi Arabia, Denmark versus France, Australia versus Tunisia, and the one that's going to get the most coverage today is Argentina versus Mexico, because I have a lot to say about the Mexican national team. Y'all know how much of a supporter I am of the national team and how much I love to support them. But today, they let us down, and so did Tata. So we're really going to cover all of that. But before, I'm just going to give a little recap about the other matches. So let's dive right into that. The first game of the day was Poland versus Saudi Arabia. And it was going to be an interesting game to watch because we all know how Saudi Arabia performed last week in their upset victory against Argentina. And Poland, who drew in Mexico and looked a little bit flat and uninteresting to watch. But Poland was able to manage to get a 2-0 victory over Saudi Arabia. And that victory is super important because it places Poland in first place now. And perhaps maybe, Saudi Arabia's victory against Argentina was just a little spark of inspiration and motivation. But, they still have a chance. Saudi Arabia still has 3 points in the group. And they're facing a Mexico squad that seems a little weak and lackluster. So it's going to be interesting to see how this group plays out, especially after the Argentina-Mexico game and after Poland's win, too. The second game of the day was Australia versus Tunisia, and there was only one real difference maker in this game, as it resulted in a 1-0 victory for Australia, which is a great result for them because now it leaves them in second place. And on top of that is a good comeback after their humiliating defeat to France. They got blown out 4-1, so they really had to bounce back today, and they did. And they did something that Denmark couldn't do, and that was beat Tunisia. And then after this game, we saw France versus Denmark, which was a very, very close game. And one of the games that I was excited to watch because I know that Denmark beat France recently. So I knew it was going to be a competitive match. And it was nothing far from that. So, it was very exciting to watch, especially Mbappe, who got a brace today. Mbappe did marvelously last World Cup, and he's continuing that rhythm. He is definitely displaying why he is one of those generational talents in this era. And he was able to get a brace. France went up first, and then Denmark was able to equalize. And then out of nowhere, Mbappe showed up and showed why he is one of the most promising and best players in the world at the moment. The first 3 games of Day 7 of the World Cup were really good games, but I must admit that I'm keeping the recaps short and sweet because I have a lot to cover for the Mexican national team because I feel like there needs to be changes in our team. And we all know how big of a supporter I am of the Mexican national team. So I must hold them accountable today. And, today's result against Argentina was actually a defeat. And we fell 2-0 to the Argentines. And this game pretty much proves that Argentina may be our kryptonite when it comes to international tournaments, especially the World Cup. In 2006, they shattered our hopes when they knocked us out in the round of 16 in extra time. And in 2010, in a similar fashion, they also eliminated us in the round of 16. And today, they beat us once again, but this time in group stages, and now they left us off in last place in the group. But to be honest, in my opinion, the only thing that separated Mexico and Argentina were the 2 goals, which were very, very good goals. Messi had his traditional finish, or his finish that we all know him for. That shot from outside the 18, driven into the low bottom corner. And then a golazo from Enzo Fernandez. That was just unstoppable. Not even Ochoa's heroics could do anything about it. But On top of that, or besides that, once again, we see that Argentina did not display their best football. And honestly, we should have capitalized on that. But one thing that we're really missing right now, as far as the Mexican national team, is a proper striker to help us get into the attacking third in order to create more opportunities. So right now, we really need a number 9 desperately. And honestly, maybe that's where Santi Jimenez from Feyenoord could have came in clutch, but Tata decided to snub him from the call-ups. I even feel like Chicharito would have helped. He's been showing form with Galaxy, but he's the type of player to stay in the box and poach for goals. And he didn't even get a call-up either, and apparently it was because of personal reasons with Tata Martino. But, that shouldn't even matter because the Mexican national team needs strikers. And the ones that we are bringing in, or we have been bringing in for the past months, haven't done anything. We haven't scored in the first 2 matches of the World Cup, and that looks extremely bad. Imagine we leave this tournament without scoring a single goal. That would be plain out embarrassing, and we will be eaten up by the media. But the thing I hate the most right now about the national team is that Mexico settles for coaches that aren't Mexican. And although that may seem a little nationalist, a coach that doesn't share the same nationality as you, especially when you're playing for the national team, isn't going to feel the same passion that players feel. For instance, this World Cup, we have Tata, and he keeps making errors with the roster and lineups. And then last World Cup, we had Osorio, who's Colombian, and he was a really good coach. He helped us beat Germany, and at least he helped us hope. At least he made us have some hope for the national team. But in the end of the day, we failed to come in first in the group in 2018 when we had a really good chance to do so. And, a coach that did show passion was Piojo Herrera in 2014, He's the one that brought Mexico out of the slumps because we were down bad in 2014. We had to play playoff matches against New Zealand in order to qualify. But we all saw Piojo Herrera, the way he celebrated his goals with Mexico in 2014 with all the Super Saiyan memes and stuff like that. But, I feel like Tata doesn't have a passion for Mexico. And, I feel like in order to be the coach of a national team, you have to have passion and pride for that country. Because one of our greatest coaches from Mexico was actually La Volpe, who was Argentine. But he loved Mexico. He was passionate for that team. He was there for his players. You have to have passion for the national team you're coaching, or at least for its nation. But if you don't, then you're not really going to care about the results. And to top it all off is that, in fact, our manager right now is legit from Argentina. And who did we play today? We played Argentina. Obviously, it's unethical, but who's to say that he didn't want his own country to win? And I know that's pathetic of me to say because, it is a job for him to get results for Mexico. But in the end of the day, it is ironic, and it is the World Cup. So who wouldn't want their own country to win? But other than that, Tata is a terrible coach, in my opinion, at least for the Mexican national team. And I'm just completely done with him. I'm tired of seeing him call up the same players and having favorites. And he doesn't even appreciate Mexican football. He has openly admitted that he admires the MLS much more, which, the MLS is growing, and a lot of people are claiming for it to be better than Liga MX, which could be true. And, it's okay to show respect and show merit where it is deserved. But to say that, you prefer the MLS and the American League while you're coach of the Mexican national team is kind of outrageous and disrespectful, because you're kind of saying that, oh, I prefer this team or this league or these types of player over the ones that I'm coaching right now, And I that didn't sit well with me, and I know that didn't sit well with a lot of other Mexican fans. But before the match, I did see that Tata did change the formation, and I was actually surprised because it was a very defensive formation, and I feel like we did need that against Argentina. But it was way too defensive, and it just looked like we were out there playing for the draw instead of going out there to try to win. And that's exactly what it looked like. Mexico sat back, Mexico held back, defended until they could get a counterattack, but it didn't work. And I feel like the formation was too defensive, and perhaps it needed better players in certain positions. And one of the most surprising things about today's game and lineup is that Tata didn't even start or play Edson Alvarez, who plays for Ajax as a center defensive midfielder. And in my honest opinion, I think he's the best, if not second best Mexican player behind Chucky. So it's outrageous to me that he didn't get any playing time. Edson Alvarez, if he is not our best player, he is definitely our best defensive midfielder. And he didn't even get any minutes against Argentina. How are you putting out a defensive formation and not putting your best defensive midfielder in the lineup? That doesn't make any sense. And we're all aware that Messi's goal was a very good goal. He placed that shot in the bottom corner, making it unstoppable for Ochoa. But we're all aware that Messi was left alone. Nobody was marking Messi. He had all the time and space in the world. And that's something that you cannot give Messi, because he will punish you. And he did that today. But all our players were parking the bus, yet nobody marked him. That's insane to me. I promise you that Edson Alvarez would have been there. In a football match, you usually see the defensive midfielder play against or battle it out with the number 10 on the other team. Right? So, I'm sure that Edson Alvarez would have been there to at least, disturb Messi and not let him get a shot off so easily. But instead, El Tata decided to start Hector Herrera and Guardado, who are both aging players. They're past 30 now, while Edson is still only 25 years old. Edson has youth, and he has already played in a World Cup as well. So he has pretty good experience. He has Champions League experience. And his youth would have definitely helped today. And, although I am a huge fan of Andres Guardado, he's our captain. He's had huge moments for the national team, and he also has a huge impact on the pitch. But his age might be starting to let him down, and that showed when he came off injured right before the half, and we were forced to use a substitution. And even with Guardado getting injured and Mexico needing a replacement, Tata still didn't play Edson, which is insane to me, because that would have literally been a man-for-man substitution, Guardado was playing center defensive midfielder. You could have easily just put Edson Alvarez in, And that was just very disappointing not to see him get any minutes. And Tata got that substitution so wrong. Instead, he played Eric Gutierrez, who is very good, don't get me wrong. He's very good on his day. He's been balling out for PSV in the Netherlands. And he's good, but today he was far from that. He was misplacing passes and committing silly fouls. And, it just didn't seem like a good replacement for Guardado. And honestly, this was the type of match that Edson Alvarez would have loved to play. He loves these types of battles and feisty games. But he wasn't given the chance today. And he should have been given the chance today. But on top of all that, the rest of the substitutes were very, very shaky on behalf of Tata. None of them produced anything. Although Lozano and Vega did seem a bit tired, they were our best chances at scoring goals. They were the only ones who would try to attack and go forward. I mean, obviously they're forwards, but, we had very little chances, and they were the only ones trying to produce something. They were the only players who were being daring. So to me, it wasn't really logical to sub them both out. And as a replacement, he put in Antuna, who, in my opinion, is hot trash. All he does is try to run down the wing and cross the ball into the box. So in reality, today, he didn't do anything because Mexico was pretty much defending the whole game. So Antuna didn't even get a chance to show out or even play. And that just shows how much of a one-dimensional player Antuna is. He literally just runs down the wing. He's a sorry-ass player. Alvarado was also introduced into the game, and he plays for Chivas. But that man seemed lost. And it just looks like he isn't ready to play in the World Cup. Very few things went through his side, and he had very few touches on the ball. But those were the two players that replaced Vega and Chucky. And, it just seems so pathetic because none of these players were difference makers. And these dudes legit just went in there, got their cardio in, and called it a day. They ain't trying nothing. In my opinion, Linus would have done better than both of those fools. And don't even get me started on Raul Jimenez. I know his injuries are unfortunate, but one, he hasn't been the same since. And two, he hasn't even stepped on the pitch for Wolves in the last few months. How does somebody who hasn't even played get called up? How does somebody who hasn't even played get minutes at a World Cup? It doesn't make any sense. In fact, before the World Cup, there were videos of him still struggling to warm up and stretch. How do you bring someone on that is just coming straight back from injury, It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense. In my opinion, Raul Jimenez is just taking up a spot. He doesn't do anything when he comes onto the pitch. He really doesn't. The one thing he tried today was a Rabona. Who in the world tries to do a Rabona while you're losing? I'm telling you, man, it's getting pathetic with the national team. A lot of these things just don't make sense to me. And I was a huge fan of Raul Jimenez, but in all honesty, he's just not good enough anymore. Either that or he's just not ready to play yet. But he has a lot of work to do to recover from his injuries. Maybe he still plays with fear, but he wasn't ready to play in the World Cup this year. Tata got it so wrong in this game. And even with his roster, as you can tell as I'm venting and ranting, none of his subs were impactful. I need him out right now. His era has been nothing but mediocre. Shout out to Argentina, though. They really scored some golazos on us, but they did not have their best game, and that's what pisses me off the most. Mexico didn't have a bad first half, but Argentina came out way stronger after the half. So that leaves me questions about what the locker room looked like at the half. Argentina looked like they received a speech from their coach, while Mexico just came back out flat and parking the bus. Halftime is a chance for the coach to motivate their players and push them to go out and improve, but it only looks like one side did that, and it was Argentina. I don't want to get off topic, but there was a viral video of Saudi Arabia's coach and his halftime speech against Argentina. His speech held his players accountable, showed passion, and felt like I was watching Rocky with how inspirational it was. That's a true manager through and through. They bring the best out of their players, and they don't applaud mediocrity. Mexico needs a coach like that. That's why I like Del Piojo Herrera from the World Cup 2014 and coaches like Tuca Ferretti, who used to coach Tigres, because they're not afraid to hold their players accountable. They speak the truth, and they motivate them as well. Managers set the standard, and Tata doesn't do that for Mexico. But enough with the Tata slander. I hope he gets sacked, and we bring in someone who will bleed our colors. The group now has Poland in first, Argentina in second, and Saudi Arabia in third, leaving us dead last in our group. Our chances are slim, but we can still make it. We can still make it if Poland beats Argentina and we beat Saudi Arabia. And another way for us to make it is that if Argentina demolishes Poland and we demolish Saudi Arabia, and we go through based off goal difference. But as you can tell, a lot of things have to happen in order for us to qualify. Poland and Argentina could easily play for the draw and will be eliminated. But honestly, it's looking very slow for Mexico because we haven't even scored a goal in the tournament. And you can't win games if you don't score. But honestly, I hope Saudi Arabia really hands us that L. I hope Saudi Arabia beats us. I don't even care at this point. Subjectively, obviously, I would love for Mexico to qualify. But objectively, I know that if we qualify, we're not even going to compete. We're just going to get bounced in the round of 16 once again. And we can't compete. And I hope this team loses to Saudi Arabia because we really need a reality check. We really need to check ourselves. We need to check the Mexican national team. They need to be checked for sure. Look at our counterparts, USA and Canada. The way they're playing right now in the World Cup demonstrates levels. They're evidently levels ahead of us. Looking at how they play, especially right now in the World Cup, and comparing them to us, we look like junior varsity. And if you played soccer in high school, you know what that means. USA is stepping their game up, and Canada is as well, while we're just drowning in an ocean of mediocrity. We're the only one that's not growing or developing. They have caught up, and honestly, after their performances in this World Cup, Canada and USA have surpassed us. And there's no way that we can deny that. They play so much better than us, and they're out there competing. Canada made it super difficult for Belgium. USA got a draw against Wales, and they tied against England, who, is one of the teams that is predicted to make it far. While Mexico is over here losing to a weak Argentina. And I'm not even going to say weak because Argentina has talent. But Argentina is not in their best of moments right now. So Mexico should have definitely took advantage of that. We're tying with Poland, and we can't even score, That's just embarrassing. But Canada and the U.S. have definitely surpassed us. And in my opinion, I feel like Mexico shouldn't even have qualified to this World Cup. Look at the U.S. They didn't qualify for the 2018 World Cup, and they missed it. But guess what? It worked in their favor because they were able to start rebuilding brick by brick, player by player. And although they are still rebuilding and developing, their future looks very promising. And at the current moment, they are competing at a very high level. On top of that, all of the American players pretty much play overseas. Mexico used to be the CONCACAF giant, but not anymore. And all of their recent performances, even prior to the World Cup, have shown that. If we leave this World Cup without scoring a goal, I hope the media eats us up. We're blessed to be co-hosts for the next World Cup, but even then, that's a chance of becoming even worse because our qualification is just being handed to us. And Mexico really needs to wake up. And one way to wake up is by going through those qualifiers one more time. But we're not even going to get that chance for the next World Cup. But, Mexico really needs to wake up. In my opinion, Tata needs to be sacked. But those were just a few of my thoughts after this terrible game. Mexico is still alive, but they're barely breathing. So it will be nerve-wracking to see how the next match day plays out. I hope Mexico makes it through, but we really need a reality check. That concludes my rant for this episode. If y'all have any other comments, opinions, make sure to drop it down in the comment section below. But as you can tell, I'm not happy with the Mexican national team. But that's been all for today's episode. Y'all know what time it is. It's World Cup season. This was Danny from High Off El Foot. Make sure y'all keep enjoying the World Cup. Let's get it.